Good morning. This is Talking Devils, your favourite Manchester United podcast. I'm Wayne Barton, joined by Manchester United legend Paul Parker to talk about United's defeat at Aston Villa and a few more things. How are you doing, Paul? You all right?
Yeah, I'm fine, thank you, Wayne.
Okay. Why don't you tell me what everyone knows what I've been up to? I've been posting over socials that I've been in Florida, enjoying my time off, watching the football, but not writing or talking about it, which is good because I just put my head into buckets and just screamed for a little bit and then took the bucket off and then naturally calm and enjoying my day. You've got up to different stuff. You've been watching football, working as you do, and you've also been busy this weekend, I guess, promoting the book, but not really. It was a bit of a homecoming, wasn't it? So tell me about what happened and how good it was.
Oh well, I went back to Queens Park Rangers and they hosted me, um, and my wife and my mate and his wife. So we went there, and it was just I went there to promote the book, and then I had to go into the club shop,
Yeah,
and and it's nothing like not nothing like the mega store at Old Trafford. It still hasn't changed from when I first went there in
yeah,
1987, 38 years ago. But it was absolutely packed. It was just there had two lines. One was queuing up to the cash registers, and everyone. And then the other queue, which was maybe just as big, was queuing up to come to the register for me to sign and for them to pay for the book. But it never stopped, and I was meant to be there for 30 minutes. Ended up doing an hour and a half, and actually coming out of there 10 minutes before kickoff.
wow, okay.
Yeah, it just was incredible.
And I'm gonna. It's obvious everyone would have been very nice to you. Everyone's. It would have been really nice. I doubt anyone's giving you any criticism or any stick. Everyone was being really good and supportive. It must have any old familiar faces in that queue.
No, what of QPR? They've just got older.
Yeah,
That's what it boils down to. Just everything. I mean, when I do go, I go there 2 or 3 times a year. Maybe once out of that is just to go and watch a game. But generally, I go there to go. If I'm not doing a Premier League game, I try and see if Rangers at home if I
yeah,
can do that game. And I do always get welcomed. It was a full house as well, which was great to see. And I still always believe you can't beat that stadium when it's sold out, when it's busy. It can be an intimidating stadium. Nothing when I talk about it's not volatile. It's just the noise it makes and what it creates. And what it creates generally is a good performance from the team. And for 45 minutes, the only other 45 minutes that matched what I saw at Loftus Road was when Rangers, Manchester United v Bournemouth.
yeah,
Really, that 45 minutes was maybe the best 45 minutes that I've seen for an Amarin team, and maybe even longer, and maybe the best 45 minutes of football I've seen this season, where I thoroughly enjoyed the game end to end, players being brave and passing forward, not worrying about making mistakes. It was
yeah.
good. So it was definitely for everything went with it for the books, for the football, and for my ego. It was fantastic to go back to Loftus Road.
Yeah, I love QPR as well. It is one of those grounds, and this is one of the great things about English football. You do get it in some cities on the continent and in South America as well, where the stadiums are built into the areas in which there's no designated sort of land for them, so they like pitched in as much as they can be. And there's a lot of those in London. QPR is probably might even be the best example of it. You switch down a road, and suddenly it's there. I went there in 2017, I think. I was a guest of Gordon Jago just after Gordon's book had been published in America, but he came over. It wasn't yet available in England, but he was welcomed back just as he normally came back. So because I'd been working with him, he invited me and my wife down. And it would have been the same kind of reverence as it was for you because they treat their heroes in a certain way, and everyone was really nice. When you're with that person, everyone's made to feel like they're part of the family, and being there as he went onto the pitch at half time and sort of like everyone welcomed him and everything. It's just like a really good football club, and it is. I know you've said before in years gone past about how football is football outside of the Premier League. QPR is an incredible example of that. It really does feel like I don't want to say stuck in the past, because I don't mean that. I just mean it's a reminder of the good values of the game. And yeah, QPR are a great club, and I'm so glad that you had the reception that you deserved. Yeah, let's talk about Manchester United then. Before I talk about the game, just a couple of things to talk about. As I normally do on my morning podcast, but I'll just shoehorn them in now. On this day events, Mark Robbins' birthday today, so happy birthday, Mark! Now a football manager, scorer of the goal, which famously, in inverted commas, if you're listening, saved Alex Ferguson's job. I know that there's a couple of players who claim that along the way, but Robbins is the greatest example with his goal at Nottingham Forest. On this day in 2001, Manchester United beat Southampton 6-1. Ruud van Nistelrooy scored a hat-trick. On this day in 2018, we beat Cardiff City 5-1 in Ole Gunnar Solskjaer's first game as caretaker manager. That means that it was 2 weeks after that this podcast started, Paul. So we're coming up to 6 or 7 years of this podcast. So 7 years this podcast. Very good. Let's talk about the game. Aston Villa 2, Manchester United 1. United played very well in the first half. Then Bruno Fernandes got injured. He was forced into a reshuffle Amorim at the break, and United they were toothless in the first half. In fact, toothless in the second half, and you could say that about the first half as well. The performance had a lot of the hallmarks of the Amorim reign, where you watched them play, you thought there's just no cutting edge here, and they'll concede a goal, and they did that right on half time. And then it was a matter of how they're going to respond to that. And they did respond. They came back straight away. One thing that has been a good trend in recent weeks is that United's team under Amorim have developed a little bit of resilience. But I just don't think they had the firepower in the second half. There were a lot of players missing. And truth be told, and we'll probably criticise him for it in this podcast, I know I'm going to do that, that maybe the manager could have been a little bit braver with some of the decisions that he's taken. And maybe he's, I don't want to say the horse has bolted with that, but maybe the security in taking those risks, he's going to have to be a little bit more riskier now moving forward, when he probably could have taken them a little bit earlier in the season and prepared him a little bit more for what's to come over the next couple of weeks. United's issues are the same as what we've come to know. Players ill-fitting in formation, the selection, a few question marks over that. And the goals, really, United still did enough to get a point from the game, apart from there was a passage in the press in midweek. I think it was a Talk Sport video, and they had a couple of the fan pundits on, and they were really criticising Lenny Yoro. I know we've talked about Yoro, you and I, and we've talked about his positioning and the fact. I think the point you raised was that you don't feel he's a natural defender in the way that he smells danger like De Ligt or yourself or a Steve Bruce. Those people will know the kind of defenders I'm talking. Wes Brown, a defender who loves defending. They're on the pitch to defend. Yoro isn't that kind of player. He gives chances. There's nothing wrong with that. But we learned a valuable lesson yesterday, and he's learned a few in the last few weeks. I think that the criticism from the press in the last week was a little bit harsh because they're writing him off. Nobody's doing that. But it cost us yesterday. He didn't sense danger. A valuable lesson for him, a valuable lesson for us, because I think without those two, perhaps a little bit harsher to blame him for the second goal, but he should have known what was going to happen after the first one. He should have been tighter, and I think he reacted a little bit too late. You can probably tell by how close he got to him for the second goal that he realised the error of his ways in the first one. But it's still too little too late, and that has been the expensive lesson there, that he's cost United the game. He doesn't get close enough to Morgan Rogers. You're not going to see Rogers get that amount of space by any other defender in the league this season. He's going to have to, he's a very good player. He's going to be fashioning those chances himself, but he's not going to get the chance sort of 10 yards of space to do what he did. And I think that's what determined the game. I still think United had enough in the overall performance to deserve a point, but you knew that once they conceded the second goal, they were never going to come back because they just didn't have the firepower, and there's too much pressure on Cunha to deliver, and you could feel that he was feeling that he was carrying it as well. So, and especially when Fernandez went off, you had him out. Ahmad was already out, and Mbumo, Mazraoui on the same AFCON tournament, Menu with the alleged injury before kickoff. So, United were toothless in the end. Couldn't get that equaliser. A couple of chances, Cunha from long distance, Lacey making his debut, had an effort from long distance, but that was really it. United never looks like they were going to get a point from that. And like I said, I'm going to get into criticism of Amorim, I guess, throughout the podcast, but I do feel like overall, considering the amount of players that United had out, like it's a little harsh to criticise the manager. Like you said, we played quite well against Bournemouth. We looked entertaining. The caveat being that you think that that's an individual thing rather than design of the manager. You know what I mean? Cunha plays well, Ahmad plays well, and Mbumo plays well. You look at the individual qualities of the players, don't you? You're not necessarily saying this is a result of the system. And I think that's my reluctance yesterday. I'm looking at thinking we could go in at Amorim and say he could have prepared for this a little bit better. I don't know. What did you make of yesterday? It's a very sort of complex game to pick out, considering United had so many players missing.
Yeah, but you're going to have to get used to it for the next few as well. That's the thing about it, Wayne, is it's not a step forward. And yes, when you do look at it going forward, I mean, as a team going forward, they're going to struggle because Bruno does definitely make a difference. He does add something. There is negativity sometimes when he gets emotional, when he starts getting a bit rash. But sometimes you need the unexpected to happen, and he was that one who gave it that. But I will say is that I think Martinez coming in that midfield, he did make a difference. There was definitely more discipline in the way they played, but you would need someone around him with that little bit of flair that had something, because he was always composed when he got the ball, and he got given respect by Villa as well, because they stood off of him when he had the ball at his feet. There was more interested in blocking the holes for him to pass rather than actually, they couldn't get to him straight away, they stood off, so they showed him respect with the ball. That doesn't happen often. Casemiro gets that, but Casemiro puts himself in tighter areas than what Martinez did anyway, so there's a difference on that one. The game, it was close, and I always expect those games to be close. There's always something at Villa Park, and up until yesterday, it was like 1 in 26. You'd always look for United to win there, but I think there was a lot of doubt around it because the way United had been and what they was missing. But, fortunate in a certain way to be able to get straight back into the game at 1-1, because, I mean, that's the thing. Villa give every team a chance because they will not go long. They just give everyone a Matty Cash. I mean, you look at him and he just summed up, in my opinion, the football today. It's not allowing players to use their initiative. And he was closed down. Everything was blocked, but he still tried to play his way out. And for me, that makes a player. He's suddenly Matty Cash is a robot, because he didn't use his own initiative to get out of trouble. He should have done a Des Walker. He should have gone to Rose Ed, looked at the person who gave him the ball, called them out, because there was no need to do that, and then move on and say, well, he hasn't scored. But he didn't do that. He could have cost Villa the game in the end by doing something like that. Because I think if Bruno had stayed on, the second half would have been different. There would have been more opportunities made. But the greatest opportunity of the game was badly missed by Cunha.
Yeah,
badly. It was an absolute awful header. There wasn't any excuse that he was stretching. It just seemed like he just turned his head the wrong way round. It was like a Toblerone head. It was terrible. Used to say frop me bit, but you can't say it now because there's younger people who don't know what I'm on about. So I've moved on to Toblerone head. So you look at it and you say, in certain ways, it wasn't that bad considering what they were missing. They was missing 3 influential players going forwards. And there's nothing to cover that. There is nothing there to cover what they've lost out there, really. So the next couple of games, at least, are going to be very, very difficult, because you'll be looking and asking the question, where is a goal going to come from?
Yeah. So United yesterday, like I said, they had a chance through Lacey who came on, and you can't help but wonder how more confident he might have been because he looked quite confident. I don't think there's any problem with that. The thing that we've talked about in the past with younger players coming in is the temperament, and you wonder how much um, more confident or settled into that system, or how much of a threat they would have posed if he'd come on earlier in the game, if he'd have been given more of a chance earlier in the season. Agate played poorly again. I think the stat is that every game he started, United have lost this season. 7 games now, which is damning. I think probably most of the time he's been brought on when United have been leading. He's probably contributed to us not winning the game. It's just not a good record, and you've got to think at some point, would it have been worth giving Jack Fletcher a chance? But that's a question now that'll be asked moving forward, when it should have been already part of the conversation earlier on. Those chances should have been given. And United have been put in that situation by the fact that they weren't able to bring in another midfielder in the summer, but also they lost in the Carabao Cup, so they've not been able to have that opportunity to rotate the squad to give these players chances. They've stuck with the first team, and Amorim's sort of done this, whether or not he's contradicted himself so many times, by trying to keep the strongest side that he can. Like I said, Martinez came in yesterday, played on the left side of that midfield, and that, because he's the more pragmatic side, the sensibility will be more pragmatic. It leaves open the question of what will happen on the right-hand side. The opportunity, if Mainu, who was expected to be out for a week, he might be back in the squad for the Newcastle game, whether or not he could line up alongside him, or whether or not you give that chance now to Jack Fletcher. And I think Lacey, probably deserves a chance in there. If you're still going to say that Mainham's going to be out, then Lacey deserves a chance on the right as well. More than Xerxes, who did nothing when he came on. He's just there as a placeholder because Sesko was tired. So you bring on Xerxes. United were really struggling yesterday. Like I said, Cunha had the chance. Sesko had the one in the first half, but it was Cunha's one to get a point from the game. That thing. And look, I just look at it. I think Villa have won 10 games in a row now. So you can't deny them their flowers, or whatever they say these days. They've done well enough to deserve that. I don't think they were brilliant yesterday, but when you've been playing well and you've got that run of consistency, you deserve the look that you get sometimes, and that's what they got. United, incredibly, Paul. People were talking about when they dropped points at Spurs and Forest that they could have been in the top 4, and they were in the live play. They've been in the top 4. But if they'd have won those games, and if they'd have won the games at home against Everton, West Ham, and Bournemouth, which isn't unreasonable, right? That's, you say, that could have happened. United would be top. They'd be top of the league. They wouldn't be top 4. They'd be top of the league, which tells you a lot about the state of the league, but also says, well, there's so much of this league to still be competed for because teams will drop points, and there's an opportunity for United. But I feel like now that coming over this Christmas period is going to be seen in the risk taken by the manager, because he's got to do something different, and he can't. The way that he set up yesterday, albeit with all the missing players, did contribute to us losing the game, because you can't start with Agate and think you're going to control that midfield. So he's going to have to change that against Newcastle and against Wolves, because Wolves have got 2 wins at Old Trafford in recent years. I know that they've been dreadful this season, and everyone's saying, they'll get battered by everyone they play against, and they were beaten heavily by us. But I think they'll be confident coming to Old Trafford over Christmas. So I think what you played in the game, and it's a really good example to use, that when you played in the game at Villa Park, when Alan Hansen said afterwards, you can't win anything with kids. We'd put in all the kids, and United had lost the game, and obviously over the season it's proven to be, it was a sensible criticism at the time, but over the season proved to be wrong. It's one of those legendary missteps. But I think if you look at this current status, there's probably nothing to lose for Amorim by putting in kids, right? At this point, I'm not saying everyone, but if you're going to trust Jack Fletcher, give him a chance over Agate, give Lacey a chance, you're probably going to benefit more by giving those kids a chance. Like, for example, if De Ligt or Maguire comes back and he wants to put them in the middle, keep Heaven in the side. Don't, I know Shaw's done all right, but keep Heaven in the side because he's been really impressive. You don't want to lose the momentum of those players. You want to basically put that injection of youth in, because if you can keep that connection going, you get the crowd going a little bit. This is the opportunity to take the risk. You've not got Ahmad, you've not got Mbumo. Casemiro was out. I know he'll be back again for Newcastle, so he'll probably start anyway. But within the players that you've got that are missing, you've actually got that opportunity to take that risk and put new players in and not lose face. You know, the way that he seems to not want to back down from anything. He doesn't have to do that now. So he can take the risk, can't he?
I think at any club, the moment you start playing players who have come through the system at that club, it buys you time. It buys you a bit of respect with the fans. The fans will go with you. Maybe even the people in the up above would look at that as well, and they just might see themselves maybe in the long term not maybe having to spend money. You know, it just makes sense. If you're looking to get things on side, you play the younger players. It should have been done a while ago. He didn't take the opportunities. You've said that already, that it would have made things easier for him now if he had done that, because he would have known about, can that player deal with it. Now he's in a position where he doesn't really know, or he doesn't want to know, but he's got to go and do it. It will get people on side. People will give you that opportunity, and it is always gives an excuse to the fans and to the manager about the inexperience of that player. But like you say, and you said it there with Heaven, is not the time when, say, if it was a De Ligt or a Maguire come back, that all of a sudden you take him out, because that could affect him. Because I thought he was decent yesterday. There was a few moments where you thought yourself, oh, you remember how old he is, but you just saw the confidence of the way he was when he was on that ball. And he done one time when he made his great run. He's read a situation, he's nicked it, and he's ran through, and he's just dropped a shoulder, done something, and went away into space, and he just lost his head a bit, and he ended up kicking it off for a throw-in. He missed the pass, he knocked it in behind. But for him to do that says something that is growing. I turn around and say, shouldn't Luke Shaw be playing in the middle and him to the left? For Luke Shaw, that more experience, and that position is about authority. When you're playing in that position, you are certainly seen as the person who's leading it. Yeah. You're in control of something. With a Luke Shaw, you know, I think he squeaks. I don't think he talks, to be perfectly honest. You don't see anything from him at all until something goes wrong. But I like what I see of him. I liked it from the first time he made his substitution appearance against Arsenal. And we look at the Bournemouth game where he looked a little bit uncomfortable, but others had looked uncomfortable around him as well. But when it come to a bigger game, a bigger fixture, he stuck out, and that says a lot. So if it was Sir Alex, he wouldn't be leaving him out. He wouldn't want to take something away from him, because you might not get it back because of his young age. He just might not be out return from it if he goes and does it. I don't know if the manager's thinking that way, in that same way, or the manager might decide that he wants to do it his way and take away everything that Sir Alex done and built, in that sense, that kind of idea of doing that with young players and virtually saying, no, they should be able to deal with it, keep them out. I think the young players of today are nowhere near like the likes of Nicky Button, Scholesy, those kind of players. Mentally, they're not there. And when it matters, as you mentioned earlier about United had opportunities, they had 6 games to get into the top 4, and they failed every single one. And that's when you have to ask a question about a mentality of a football team, where they don't see what's in front of them. It's like going into 6 semi-finals and failing every single one.
Yeah. On that point, how much that does the manager carry? Because I mean, I think there's only so often you can sort of criticize and openly say I'm failing. You know, after every result we don't win, I'm failing. Blah blah blah. Even when we win, we're not there yet. All that kind of thing. And I get that that's a response to the question that he's being asked. But there's been so much negativity, which Amrim's actually engaged, and some people would say that's a positive thing, that he's not ignoring it. But I think sooner or later it gets due to the players, that we're not good enough. So, I mean, when you've had that many opportunities, like I said, 6 times to get into the top 4, and, yes, there was still top 5, but it was still there. Like, you're doing quite well. And well enough to be in the conversation, but to keep failing, that's a mentality issue, and that's not a quality issue. So certainly not in this league. So what he needs to change, and maybe no, he needs to adapt is what he needs to do, and maybe that's part of it as well. But there's no one in his ear kind of saying to him, maybe not be so negative all the time. 'Cause everything's negative, even about the young players. He was saying, well, look where they are now. I just think like he's got to be more either not say anything or or be schooled in saying something a little bit differently, because I can't help but feel, and I guess just a long way around to the question, Paul, how does it affect you if you're in that position and the manager's speaking the way that he is? Does it have a proper effect on you when you're playing in the game and you're unable to see a game out? Are you thinking, well, it's because we're not good enough? The manager's already told us that.
I think it does with the modern day players. I really do, because it's just gonna make or break them. And I think it's more about breaking them because of the way the way they've been brought up in today's world. To be perfectly honest, I think years ago players would have found a way and turned around and taken that and turn around and say, I'm going to go and shove that where the sun doesn't shine and go and prove him wrong. But I think in today's world, I don't think you can say that because everything you say, players see everything. We didn't see everything. There was newspapers, or a mate might say something, you might see it, but there wasn't everywhere for everyone to see it. It wasn't on everything, from a freebie newspaper to on your phone. That's where football news is where it is nowadays. You can just pick up everything and people see it, friends and family see it. And even to the point of friends and family see things that someone has said bad, you're having a bad time somewhere, or someone has said something bad and they want to turn up and wear a t-shirt or a sweat top with something on there, where before it wouldn't have happened because people wouldn't have stuck their noses into other people's business like that. So you have to be careful in what you say, because the lad at Sheffield Wednesday has maybe been their best player.
Yeah,
But I
that
don't.
makes
But
sense. Been
yeah,
really
but
good.
I don't know if the manager was talking more about the team than the individual. I'm hoping it was the team, but if he's talking about the individual, that suggests to me then that he hasn't even got anyone watching him to watch what he's doing.
Yeah.
Which would be totally embarrassing for a club of Manchester United standing, because I know of quite a few clubs who have got people who are paid. It's a job to go around and watch your low-knee players. It's an actual job to have, and it's an absolute great job to have if you're doing that. If you've got a great interest in the football club, you've got an interest in knowing how the young players are doing when they go away, so you can say something and be strong and firm about it. When, especially a lad who's doing well at Sheffield Wednesday, a club that is already a first division team already, the club, and he's still showing everything in that kind of position. The fact that he has said he is gone when he could have said every reason not to go, for me says a lot about the lad.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean he's going to become a Manchester United great, but it means he's put himself in a great position to actually to step forward. Because if you're a coach or anybody, a football person, you go, I like that lad.
Yeah.
If you're a Sheffield Wednesday fan, they would have taken to him straight away because he's a Manchester United player who wanted to come there. So
Yeah, and that's true. I know a couple of Wednesday fans who were delighted with him.
mm,
I think because I read the press conference comments before I heard them, and what I took away from it, and it's still not any better, but I think what I took away from it was that players have got to go for, or once a player sees the reality of football away from Manchester United, they understand it's a lot different, and that it's very difficult away from United, and that they've got it easy at United, which I think is one way of looking at it. But it's not any easier at United because the pressure's on you every single day, like to the point where even reserve team players like Amas are being singled out in press conferences, and to the point that you're talking about modern media, and I guess we're part of that, is it gives you the opportunity to speak about every single player. Back when you were playing, there were, let's say, 7 or 8 major newspapers. They would all summarize the game. They'd talk about the events of the game, and let's say like 7 or 8 players get mentioned. You'd all get a rating at the end of it. But the fringe players are rarely getting mentioned unless they're really notable. Like if they're Paul Parker's missing, so they had a lot of joy down the right. Do you know what I mean? That kind of thing. That rarely would a player get mentioned in the same way that every single, well, not even analysts, like I was saying last week, it was William Mill. William Mill, one of the bookmakers. I said it earlier. That they'd got two lads out talking about Lenny Yoro, and he just wouldn't have been part of the conversation. Otherwise, they just chose him to single out because he's a United player. And he could have been anyone. Like I said, it could have been Cobby, and like Cobby's the news because his brother's wearing a t-shirt. Every single squad player becomes the news. And I guess in that respect, it is difficult for the manager. But he's still got to take that risk moving forward into the winter games. Before I go, quick podcast this morning, but we're going to come through a couple of the comments just to make sure that I've come to some people. Mark saying Emery schooled Amorim. Emery would transform United, but he would never come United employee yes men, usually inexperienced in lesser leagues. Happy Christmas, guys. I don't know if they usually inexperienced. They've just had I get what you're saying about Ten Hag and Amorim, but I think they've just gone through so many different managers that they're just trying every different thing. So Robbie says, Merry Christmas, Ruby's first visit from Santa. She's got to be good, yeah. She's got 3 days left. And Dave's obviously missing us, trying to get good points from Santa. That's why he's not here. Mark saying, playing Agate in front of Mainu sums Amorim up. Mark's got a question for you, Paul, before we leave as well. Sarah says, Amorim out, Solskjaer in. Just imagine Ollie Fletcher and Giggs in that dugout. How United... Don't make me romanticize about Ollie. I know I've got flaws in that regard because I see a lot of good in Ollie, but there were also some bad things at the end. I've forgotten about them now because I romanticize Ollie. It was terrible at the end. Let's not forget that. Bulk says, I thought United were the better team. Johnny Evans just left his position as loans manager. That's right. Yeah, but the criticism or whatever came under during that time when he was still there, right? I think so. Folks, Free Wayne and Paul. We're all right where we are. Don't worry about that. We still like doing this every week. Free Paul if he wants to free, but other than that, he's attached. I just keep pulling him back in every week. So this is the question before we leave for thing. We'll not preview Newcastle. We'll talk about Newcastle and Wolves when we need to talk about them. But Mark's asked this question. Question for Paul: are you Amorim out? You've usually been. I mean, Dave's the one who's been banging that one. But how are you feeling about it right now?
No, I'm not. To be perfectly honest, I'm not. I can still see something. He's a likable person. That makes it easier.
Yeah,
definitely. It does make it easier. I was very strong about the previous manager, about him. I wanted him to give him time, but I lost faith with him when the time when I started losing faith with him was with Diallo. That's the bit then when I realised he wasn't right, how he was treating him. The lad was coming on, giving 100%, and then he wasn't given the opportunity. People were being played in front of him when they hadn't earned the right.
Yeah.
And he was, and I thought, I just wanted them to see a young lad who comes on, gives everything. He knows he should be playing because he'll be told in today's world because everyone sees everything. The people are writing about him, yet the manager couldn't or wouldn't see it. So I fell out of love with him. Amorim, I've got more time for him. There's something about him. I still believe that he's been let down by certain players and he's been let down by the club. I don't think the club have done what they should have done for him. And I just think he's just that little bit away from being semi-successful in what he's trying to do. So I could be wrong. It could come back and bite me. But at this moment in time, I'm saying no, I'm not. But I'm looking. The league at the moment gives him an opportunity to go and grab something which is unexpected because the league. I'm going to use the word. The league is poor. The levels are poor. It's the sides. The better sides are the sides that have got the athletes in. The athletic teams are the ones who have stepped up and got everyone interested. In this season, we're seeing Crystal Palace. You look at Sunderland. You look at teams of that ilk, and they're the ones who have made it, given the league something to talk about. When you look at the big boys, even when you talk about the team that decided after 5 games that they were going to win the league, you watch them play, and I want to bring out a pillow. It's like watching George Graham team, but who has spent a load more money. You know, and if that's what money's going to buy you to perform like that, then some of those fans have got to take off their rose-tinted glasses and be honest about it, to be perfectly honest, what I've seen. So this league, it's still possible. If it wasn't, but it's a fact, it's there. If it wasn't for the African nations, United, they might just get it at one time. There is an opportunity to go and grab a top 4 spot. Where at the start of the season, I'm going top 8. That's where they should be. Given everything about them, top 8. And I'm saying that if they can keep themselves within where they are, they can go out and get a top 4 spot. And that, for me, says the league isn't that strong, because you're looking at this moment in time, Sunderland are now almost virtually a win away from being safe from getting relegated. They're having a great season. They've lost a few players, but how many players now are going to bounce forward off the back of what those others have done, saying we want all that adulation? They're going to raise their game. So the league's there at the moment to be. We're looking at a poor City side, which still could win the league, and we've seen that a Manchester United side competed with a team that's pushing to win the league title. And I'm not going to ever go at Aston Villa, because I sat there in 2016 in Singapore questioning Leicester City. When they were doing what they're doing. So I don't really want to go out there and have them to eat humble pie again.
No, unless it's like our players who are not doing well, and we're quite happy for them to prove us wrong when they come back. But humble pie, the worst kind of pie. Box says a Harrods George Graham side.
Yeah, I like
that. We dropped so many points that even after having all the players available. Yeah, I know, but you've got to. We talk about it. We talk about the events past, but we have to look at can we learn those lessons moving forward? I think this is a nice period to do that. If he gambles, I don't think he will. I don't think he'll put in those. I think he'll put in a senior team to get through Newcastle, Wolves, and Leeds. But I would take that gambler throwing the kids in, certainly against Newcastle and Wolves at home, because they're the best opportunities to do it. We'll talk about Cobby another time. One last question before we go. You can just answer the yes or no, Paul. Were you ever played in the number 10 role like Al Ten Hag played Mazraoui that time in I think it was the Champions League when it at Fenerbahce, was it?
It was, yeah.
Did you ever play number 10?
Only once, and I woke up during the night with a sweat on.
I don't think that happened at United. Certainly not under Sir Alex.
No.
Right, that's it for this episode. I was going to say this year, but we'll probably do another one this year to round out the year. So if you celebrate Christmas, have a great Christmas. However you celebrate, if you do celebrate, have a great one. If you don't celebrate anything this year, still have a good Christmas time, a good period. We still wish that for you as well. Really appreciate all the support. I will make a note now so everyone who watches and listens is aware of it. On Christmas Eve, I normally put a post on my Twitter offering people one of my books, any ebook, Kindle version of my book to read, one of my books to read. And I do that just in case, if for whatever reason you need something to read, if you're lonely, if you need a distraction or something like that over Christmas, then just send me a message. I'll be putting the links out anyway, but just letting you know, if you don't follow me on socials and this is how you follow along, feel free to contact me and I'll make sure that you get a copy of a book. Not Paul's book, you have to buy that or go down to QPR Club Shop. I'm sure there's some signed in there as well. Or you can get it on Amazon or Pitch Publishing. Really glad again that it went well for you at QPR, but not surprised because it's such a lovely club. And we'll be back next week to talk about hopefully a couple of gambles, a couple of kids to talk about. Cobby Mainham scoring a screamer in a winner against Newcastle, and then make sure that he's undroppable for the future. That's my Christmas wish. I don't know about you guys. Have a good one, and we'll be back soon.